Right. All right. It's Friday
It's Friday.
and you're out of town again.
I'm in a different country again. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like we should be keeping track of how many times that I'm in a different country or a different state,
Yeah.
and we do a podcast. I might be setting a record for like the most places someone's podcasted from.
Hi, that's true. And different time zone too, right? You're an hour different.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in Mountain Time Zone, so I'm in Calgary, Canada. It's my hometown. I'm sitting in the backyard, my parents' backyard right now. It's
Nice.
lovely. Getting ready. I'm going to do an Olympic distance race on Sunday.
Awesome.
And it's really funny. I haven't done, I was looking at it. I hadn't done an Olympic distance race since 2019 or 2020,
Huh.
2020, no,
Yeah.
2019, 2019. And I'm like, oh my gosh, because of COVID and stuff. And
Yeah.
I've been kind of singing on the 70.3 racing and sprint racing. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I was starting to think about how do I fuel again for an Olympic race?
Yeah.
And I've coached people through Olympic races, obviously, and I'm like looking back at my notes, and I'm like, oh, okay, like that's yep, okay. Like it's funny, right? Because like for a 70.3, I don't even have to think almost anymore. Like
Right.
I
Mhm.
got it dialed in exactly what I need to do. But yeah, it's a different ball of wax doing an Olympic.
I think you'll enjoy that distance again because you've done some sprints, you've done the
Yep,
70.3s, and obviously you've done Olympic distance before, but it will be
yep,
neat to go back to that now because it is that sort of sweet spot of distance that you've got to make some decisions ahead of
yep,
time in
yep.
order to do well. But no, I love it that you're up there, and I love the idea of just traveling and then finding a race. I mean,
Yep.
you were going to Calgary to race, but you were
No,
going to Calgary and you found a race, and I think that's just such a great way to do it.
yeah. I like it's kind of been that like this all summer. I think this is the third race doing that just happened to be where I was going to be.
Yeah, yeah,
And I just think that that's such a good way to, I don't know, like to connect with people in the places you go. And then I think it deepens your memory
hmm
of the times you go places because you tend to remember the races.
yeah.
And it's kind of funny, when we normally podcast and have a bunch of medals behind me. People like ask like why do you have all like what's with all the medals? I'm like, I can remember every single race by looking at the medal.
Right, right, right.
And it's a really interesting thing. It's more for me like to jog my memory.
Mm.
And it'll be the same on Sunday here. It'll, it's really interesting. I'm actually here for my cousin's birthday, which
Oh,
really
cool.
it's her 50th birthday, and
Yeah,
that's why I decided to come up, and
yeah.
obviously to see my friends and family. But yeah, it's pretty cool that I'll be doing that.
You sneak out and do that. No, I love it. And sometimes it's fun to go to a race with a group and you all sort of share stories and you sort of
Yep.
debrief with each other and maybe see each other on the course. Sometimes it's fun to just go and race and you don't know anybody and you just go to race. There's no one with any expectations of you. They don't know you. And then
Nope.
sometimes you end up meeting some people that share an experience with and then become friends out after the race.
It's really interesting because at Coeur d'Alene, I was in a bike rack, like 4 or 5 bike racks down was a lady from Canada, and she just talked like a Canadian. So I started talking to her, and she's going to be racing this race.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I'm gonna look for her, right? Like, and I didn't
Right.
get her. Like, I got her first name and stuff. I didn't write anything down. I don't remember, to be honest with you. But I'm
Yeah.
gonna look for that lady. I'm like, hey, remember we were at Coeur d'Alene together? Like, but other than that, I don't know. I don't know one person that'll be in the race. And you're right. Like, maybe I'll make some new friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. Even like last year, I did that. I was in Indiana and I raced at a race. I literally knew no one
Mhm.
and I couldn't leave because I was talking to people. Like, like, but maybe that's just me. But it's you end up talking to people that are very like minded, right?
Yeah.
Because they're doing triathlon just like we're doing triathlon.
It's a community and it's fun to share experiences with others. And I've gone to races and I've never met anyone, and
Yep.
that was fun too. And I've gone to races by myself and end up having lifelong friends. And it just, every, like you said, every race is its own experience. And, every race has a story.
Yep. And it's like you said, it's kind of fun just to do with no pressure, no expectations.
Hmm.
Like even like my family, like my parents and my wife is here, and I'm like, you don't have to come to the race. Like I'm good. Like
Yeah.
if you want to come, great. It's gonna be 2.5 hours out there.
Yeah.
Plus, you got to wait around before and after. It could be a 4 or 5 hour endeavor. I'm like, you guys go for breakfast, go have some
Yeah.
fun. Like you don't have, I got this. It's which is kind of nice too. It's kind of freeing just to be by yourself and not
Yeah.
have to worry about
Yeah.
people waiting for you or whatever.
Oh, that's great. And you get a little bit of elevation up there too to deal with.
It's so funny because I was out running just now, like a half hour ago. And I'm like, man, my heart rate's kind of high. And I and well, it's 3,300 feet, right?
Yeah.
And we live at like 2,300 feet, so it's a
Okay.
1,000 feet more.
Yeah.
But I've been in California for a month,
Yeah. So now you're in the high desert.
so so
Yeah.
now it's, I mean, now 3,300, and because I was running the pace for me, and I'm looking down, I'm like, oh my gosh, the heart rate's 140. I'm like, that should be 130. But
Oh,
the cool thing, and John, I know it's a physiologic question, and I know we weren't really planning on talking about this, but um, I really still believe that in triathlon, especially, even when you're at altitude, you can run pretty close to the same pace because it's not an issue of cardiovascular, like, what's the word I'm looking at? Like perfusion, it is a big, but the actual like stroke volume
yeah.
is not necessarily the limiter. Mostly for me, it's my legs. Like I
Mm,
just, I didn't like turn them over fast enough, or
mhm.
um, like even, yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on that. And I'm not talking big elevation. Like I think if you went to like 6,000, 7,000 feet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, as you get higher in elevation, you will run slower, but it's not until you get over, really, I'm trying to think of the number off the top of my head, that maybe even 4 or 5,000 feet that you're really looking at an impact on performance.
Right.
And so where you are, you're not at that threshold of elevation. So you have some effect, but it's not really going to be a big effect on
Yeah.
performance. Yeah. You keep
Yeah.
getting,
Well, and I think it's the, like I said, because I don't think that the limiter when I'm doing like an Olympic distance rate is my heart rate.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't think that's the limiter. And so normally at an Olympic distance race, I think I'd probably have a heart rate on the run, let's say 160. Well,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing stopping me from going to 170.
Right, right.
Like it's like my
Mhm.
heart rate can go higher, and I can deliver more oxygen because I'm not at my maximum heart rate.
Yeah, and see, I look at it the other way around. The limiter is always rate of oxygen consumption, and then heart rate is part of determining what
Right.
your oxygen consumption is. But I want to get back to a little bit of what you're
Yep.
doing now, which is for fun. And what we decided on a topic for tonight was to talk about how to stay in the game when you're injured. Not that you're injured right now, but we all have gone through injuries. I always think of athletes being in one of three bins. Either you're injured, and when I'm talking injury, really I'm talking overuse injury. Either you're injured, recovering from an injury, or you're soon to be injured. So you're in one of those bins, and
Yep.
when we do endurance sports, we're at a high risk of overuse injuries, and the main problem that causes the overuse injuries is something that we do, some error in our training program. We did too much, we changed something too much, we did something too fast, and we just didn't get a chance to adapt. And we've had other episodes where we talk about that. But what we wanted to talk about tonight was how to stay in the game if you're in that bin where you're injured or you're recovering from injury.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love this topic because I've been injured a lot. Like I gotta be honest with you, and so I've made a lot of mistakes, and I hopefully I learned from each of those mistakes. But I've always kind of kept it in my mind, like, what can I do? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking like I'm not talking like an acute injury where like I sprained my ankle type thing. Like you said, these are chronic, like tendon issues, muscle issues, whatever the case may be. Um, I often try and really think like, what can I do
Mm-hmm.
instead of what I can't do?
Mm-hmm.
And I know we often dwell on the can't, right? Well, I can't do triathlon. I got to race in 2 weeks. I can't do it. Well, what can you do?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, the first thing that I would tell people is like let's focus on that. I'm going to tell you just a quick anecdote. So there's a guy that we swim with, and he's in his 60s, late 60s actually, and he just got into the triathlon a couple of years ago, and he's loving it. He's loving it.
That's great.
But he's got knee issues, and so he went to the doctor a couple of weeks ago, and the doctor's like, "Hey, listen, like you're bone on bone. You really shouldn't be running." And he was really kind of upset about it, as he would, because he literally just found track a couple of years ago. And I'm like, "Hey, there's aqua bikes."
Yeah.
And he's like, "What's an aqua bike?" And I'm like, "That's where you do the swimming and the biking, but you don't run." He's like, "Well, then you don't finish." I'm like, no, it's just a different event.
Yeah.
And he's like, "I didn't even know this was a thing." And I'm like, "Yeah, you could do it at Las Vegas Triathlon. You could do it at Pumpkin Man. You could do it at the U.S. Nationals."
Yeah.
I did an aqua bike for a world championship.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
And you could just see like the light in his eyes that, oh, I can still do this. I like the culture. I like this stuff. And yes, I can't run. And now this for him, it's maybe a long-term thing of can't run. But if you can still find the thing that kind of scratches the itch, it doesn't necessarily have to be just triathlon. And it's the same with people with shoulder issues, right? A shoulder issue, can't swim, you got duathlon.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of how I've tried to approach it, is what can I do?
I love that. And I think that's a mature triathlete, is to be able to take that perspective. But I know that a lot of us, at some point we get an injury and we may not have reached that level of maturation in the triathlon, in our triathlon journey. And it can be frustrating. I mean, it can be it really, when something's taken away and all of a sudden I can't run, or all of a sudden I can't swim or can't bike or whatever it is, that just sort of really can have a mental strike against you, and in terms of how you approach the sport, or just your day-to-day activities. And I think a lot of people do end up leaving the sport because something happened and they have an overuse injury, and it either just keeps getting worse, or they don't take the time to get it fully recovered. And it's just this constant pain that they're dealing with, and now they can't do the thing that they really wanted to enjoy. And I think that's always the sort of the tough spot for a lot of athletes, is trying to get over that sense of something's been taken away, and I don't see the path forward to getting back to the sport.
Yeah. Or the path appears to be very, very long.
Yeah.
Or the other path that I see often, John, is this injury cycle, where they have an injury, they start to feel better, then they overtrain again.
Yeah.
Because they feel like maybe they've lost something, or they're behind, or they're not running the same paces or riding the same paces as they were before. But their cardiovascular system returns really quickly. And then they overtrain again. And then they stop again, get somewhat better, cycle again. And I mean, I've worked with people that have done that. I know people that have done that. I've done it myself.
Yeah.
But throughout, my career, and in my working with people, I've really tried to now preach the patience and meeting yourself where you are. Right. And it's something we talked about a little bit on the podcast with me, as I'm coming back from my latest injury, is not pushing the run pace or the run distance right now, and being happy running 5K injury free.
Yeah.
And doing it relatively often, or even 10K injury free. And once again, I'll tell you another little story. Last weekend I was doing a 10K, and I was like, 10K was the plan, and I was feeling so good. Yeah. And the old me would have been like, "Oh, I'm feeling good. Let's go 15." Yeah. But the patience is to, or go faster, right?
Yeah. Right.
But the patient person, and this is what I'm learning, is you got to pull back. Like, okay, check that box, success.
Yeah.
And then now let's go do it again in a couple of days. The exact same thing, even though I know I can longer or go harder. Yeah. And just be patient, and once again, meet yourself where you truly are, not where you used to be.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, John, but I can't tell you how many people are like, "Well, back when I was injury free, I used to run a 126 half marathon.
Right.
And well, that was 2 years ago, and you had 2 good years of training leading into that, and you weren't injured, and you had consistency. But today, you're a 145 half marathoner,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the reality. And is it frustrating? Absolutely. But the only way to get back to 126 is to recognize your 145 or 146.
I love it. Yeah, because we have to evolve. And
Yep.
not only are we, training for being involved with triathlon for a lifestyle, we're getting more fit, but we're also getting older. And that's the other mistake I see a lot of people make is they're in their 60s and
Yep.
saying, "Oh, well, back when I was in my 20s, this is what I was doing and how I was training." Oh, no, no, we need to evolve. And if we don't evolve, I think that can end up leading to another problem that leads to an overuse injury. And again, just one of those things that now it starts getting taken away from you. And now now I can't train, or it's a real struggle to train. And now the sport's not bringing any value to your life, and ultimately that's where you end up stepping away.
Or joy, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not bringing the joy. The other thing that I've seen, and that I went through as well, especially when I initially was getting, some injuries, was this perception that I couldn't race unless I was at my best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
Because I, in my mind, thought that there was this, everyone was watching me, especially when I got really good.
Right.
And the truth is nobody was. It was only my perception
Yeah.
of what other people thought, right?
Yeah.
And I avoided racing like when I could, even
Mm,
though like because I'm like, well, you know what? I know that I used to be able, once again, I do, a 38-minute 10K.
yeah.
Well, this is only going to be a 42, but I can't go post that,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that's where I am, and I was almost like in some ways embarrassed,
Yeah.
right? But why am I doing triathlon? It's for me. It's for my
That's
enjoyment.
right.
It's for my love.
Yeah.
It's not for anyone else to judge me.
Yeah.
I like but that took a long time, and I think that for me, one of the things was stepping away from social media.
Oh yeah. Right. It's funny you say that because that's actually what I was going to
Yep.
say is that, back when I was racing in the day, 80s and early 90s, results were not immediate. And so
Yep.
you can go race, but people won't find out about your race until you get the printed packet in the mail that could be a month, maybe 2 months after you raced. And so it was never immediate. And so it's funny how when I got involved with the sport, there wasn't that sense of, hey, let's compare notes. Now, of course, you start finding other people, and that type of comparison happens naturally, but not like it does today, where we post every workout, we post every race. You can go look people's races up really easily now. And so it's a different mindset, I think, with people getting in the sport now than when I did. And I'm sort of fortunate that I had that, because I've had this mindset where I'll just go race. It is what it is, and I'll do the best I can. And sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's terrible. But
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that that's like, I really do believe that there's this happens in the research for social media, is you get the dopamine response from the likes,
mm-hmm,
right? So you post this great race and this great race report,
mm-hmm,
and you want to get those, hey, great job, and all the the thumbs up emojis and
yeah,
all that stuff, and that helps feed to me, it feeds the problem,
yeah,
especially when you're injured. You don't post, hey, I had a great rehab session today,
right,
right? Like, and you're not getting that same response anymore on on
mm-hmm,
social media. And now it's like, well, where are you going to get that dopamine hit? You're not
yeah,
getting it from racing because you're injured. You're not getting it from posting on social media about your successes.
yeah,
And even with Strava, same thing, right? Like you're posting on Strava, and oh, how many thumbs up did I get? Like,
yeah.
honestly, I care. I mean, keep giving me, my people out there, keep giving me kudos, because I think it's kind of fun. But like, I don't go look, oh, who gave me kudos. You know what I mean?
I
But
certainly.
but but I think maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I probably did more. And
Hmm.
I was posting every, pretty much every single race, and I just honestly, I quit doing it, and I probably have never been happier in the
Hmm.
long run.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
that's one of the ways that I mitigated injury stuff, was avoiding social media.
well, and I think that's what's important is to, get involved with something like triathlon, but not in a way that adds stress to your life, whether that's a social
Right.
or what have you. And you really, I agree with you. You got to be deliberate in how you do that and really recognize social media for what it is, but don't let that drive a stress in your life, because as we've talked about in other episodes, stress is stress. And once you start
Yep.
adding that stress in, well, now that's going to influence your training response, which we don't want a negative influence. So yeah, I think it is very important to be deliberate about what to take from social media and how to use it.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay, John. So let's say we're consulting with somebody, and they've been dealing with this roller coaster of injury,
Hmm.
of, injury, get better, injury, get better. What advice would you give to them?
A lot of times it starts with, well, let's set the goal for when you're going to come back, because a lot of people sometimes push that up too soon. And they say, well, I want to be able to race in 6 weeks. Well, maybe it's not 6 weeks. Maybe it's 12 weeks. Maybe it's 3 months down the road. Maybe, well, that would be 12 weeks. Maybe it's, 6 months down the road, or a year away, or maybe even longer. And I think just having that mindset of recover properly, so then you can go get back to enjoying the training and the racing. So that's where I start. How about you?
I agree, and part of the problem, I we've talked about this before, but is when you sign up for races so far in advance, and when they're really expensive, it's
Hmm.
okay. I've got the 70.3 in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I've got to be better. I have to be better for that,
Hmm.
but I also have to train for that,
Hmm.
and those are oftentimes confounding variables, right?
Very
That
much.
that aren't good, and
Hmm.
and we've talked about this before, of like, just, well, let's just talk about that example really quickly. But you might actually be better just to do just rehab for those 6 weeks and then still go race,
Right. Right.
rather than try and just like piece together a little training here, a little trainer. Just go in with no training,
Yeah.
but be a little bit healthier. It actually might be better for you.
Hmm.
So there's that, and then number two, it goes along with it. But my big thing is patience.
Is
You
what?
know, patience
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
you have to be patient with your
Hmm.
body and with yourself. And yes, we all want to do the next race, and yes, this and yes, that, but you know, the patience to go and run. Let's say you're going to run it, go and run a mile, and when you're used to running 15 miles,
Hmm. Yeah.
because honestly, like, you have to build back up. And you said it earlier, the older you get, every single year you get, the slower your body recovers.
Hmm. Hmm.
And this is a fact. I mean, it's borne out in the research. Um, yes, you have a, but you have to be patient with yourself and with your body, and your body's only going to recover so fast.
Yeah. No, I love it. And I'll even share an anecdote. I'm in that position right now where I've signed up for Santa Cruz. What is it, 4 or 5 weeks away at this point? But I signed up for it 6 months ago, or what, thinking I would be ready. But all of a sudden, I'm in a position where I'm trying a different medicine for rheumatoid arthritis. It's not working, so I ended that one. I'm starting another one, but I won't start that one until the end of the month, which means I will be off meds going in this training period for Santa Cruz. And I'm like, well, is this something that I should be doing? Trying to train for 70.3. So I'm struggling with that decision at this point. And so I just wanted to show that because we're all dealing with
Yep.
it. And I think that's just, we need to really, really look at what we are trying to do and think long game, long term game. We've been in the sport, both of us, for a long period of time. And you can only do that when you take this very patient approach with being healthy.
Yep. And I personally have done it where I literally have not ran for like 6 weeks before a race. and
Yeah.
still went down and I'm talking like a 70.3 and still did the race.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just titrated myself to the, to understand once again where I'm at, but it was better than
Hmm.
trying to push the
Yeah.
training. So I
Yeah.
still did the race,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. Um, and I think in my experiences, that's almost always worked out for me doing it like that.
Hmm.
Whereas when I've tried to like train through an injury into a race,
Yeah.
in my experience, that always is
Yeah.
worked out bad for me.
Yeah, I avoid the pain, and yeah, right now I'm back to running in the water
Yep.
because that's not triggering any problems. Where running does trigger some problems. So, this goes back to what you said earlier. You got to modify and do what you can do while you are injured in a way that's not hindering your recovery. All right. So my other after I go down that path of just trying to figure out recovery time. The other big thing I tell people, stay connected to the community. It's so easy to get isolated. And
Yep.
now you're not training, maybe you're not posting so on Strava or wherever. And so you don't go there and you don't see, you don't communicate with your other friends that you're watching or following, or you don't go out to any training events, or maybe you don't go to any races, to race, obviously, and you lose touch with the community. And I think this is something that is really valuable, is to stay connected with the community and give the community a chance to help lift you up, and
Yep.
rely on the community at times. And a lot of times we, as athletes, help others, but then there's a time where it's important to receive that support from the community as well. And that's not always easy.
No, it's not. I mean, it's very difficult to go to a triathlon if you're injured and not race.
Yeah, right.
And if you know the reason that you're not going is because you're injured.
Hmm.
But the times that I've done it and went, it actually hasn't been that bad at all.
Yeah, yeah,
And you still get to see your people,
yeah,
and everyone is empathetic towards you because everyone else in triathlon has dealt with this.
yeah.
If I saw someone at a race, I'm like, hey, what's going on? Why aren't you racing? Oh, I hurt my hamstring. Oh yeah, me too. Like
Hmm.
I did that 2 years ago. Like it's 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 not as rough as you think it will be.
Hmm.
Um, and then like we talked about, like finding things you can do. Like maybe if you got like a lower body injury and you can swim, like get into your swim group that you have, and
Hmm.
don't avoid those things.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I totally agree with you on that.
And one other thing, go to a race and volunteer. And it's
Exactly.
amazing what volunteering actually does for a training program. I think it actually really helps us mature as athletes if we're out there giving and supporting a race in a way. You learn a lot actually by volunteering. I remember I was volunteering for an event, and I saw this person come in and he did his change in clothing a particular way, and I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. And ever since then, I followed that same pattern. And so you can give back but still gain at the same time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The other thing that I was thinking about when we came up with this topic, and this is something that's kind of changed in sports medicine in the last, I don't know, 15 years, and I don't think a lot of people have really are onto this yet, is actually with most of these overused injuries, rest is not what you need.
Hmm.
It's actually, you just need to lower the stress. And so with you, once again, like you're lowering the stress by running in the water, but
Right,
you're still running,
right.
right? And when you come back out of the water and you start to run, once again, like, well, running 1 or 2 kilometers, 2 miles might be just where you're at,
Yeah.
and you've lowered the stress, but you're not resting. And I
Hmm.
and in particular, and we've talked about this we did a whole episode on tendon health, but tendons don't respond to rest.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
actually keep degrading with rest. They need tension, and muscles are the same way. You rest a muscle, it atrophies,
Yeah.
right? You have to supply some level of stress that's below the level that you're going to cause further injury,
Hmm.
above the level that is going to cause atrophy. And I think that's a really easy thing to get wrong. Is okay, well, yep, my hamstring's bothering me. I'm just gonna take 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
And in my experience, and what the literature is saying, is that is absolutely not what you should do. And once again, I'm not giving like injury advice specifically for people here, but this the physiology of it is our body responds to positive stresses. It's not too much.
Yeah, right. And this is where you get into this mindset of doing something different. And maybe this is the time to do more hiking,
Yep.
or maybe kayaking or stand-up paddleboarding or some other activity that is still movement, but it's not necessarily the type of movement that is going to aggravate the recovery or hinder the recovery or aggravate any injury that someone's going to have.
When I came back from my surgery last fall, I couldn't really bike. I couldn't really run. I could swim some. So, I bought a gym membership and I was going to the gym every other day lifting weights.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Thinking that like this is going to once again make me stronger and better for when I can do longer bikes and can do longer runs. And then when I was going to the gym, I was like, I'd get on the elliptical. I wasn't ready to start running yet, but I could be on the elliptical. And just once again, what's it? A rolling stone gathers no moss.
Yeah, right.
Right. And I think you need to think of yourself when you're injured as a rolling stone. Like, what can I do just to keep moving on? I love the hiking thing, by the way.
Yeah,
I think that's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Or just walking on a treadmill, walking uphill, going upstairs, whatever the thing is that you can do to provide some stress. But just now, there's a time and a place for rest, right? Like if you go get a surgery and the doctor's like, hey, like you need to stay off of this for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, yeah, absolutely do that, right? Like let the surgery, let the surgical thing heal. But with these, we're talking about these overuse injuries. I think oftentimes we're like, oh, I'll just take 2 weeks off.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think this is also a time to address the mental side of triathlon or sport in general, in that sometimes a reprieve from the training can help you see that you miss it, you enjoy it, and when you get back to a regular training program, try to get into that program in a way that it does bring that joy back to your life, instead of something like, oh, I got to do this or I got to do that, or I need to maybe to hit this metric, or I've got to have perfect attendance for this week for my workouts or whatever, and get back to where you actually have a bit of gratitude for the training that you can do and the racing as well.
Yeah. So I got a list of, this is my last on my list, is there are no magic bullets. That's the other one.
Yeah.
You're going to go onto the internet, you're going to have a problem, and you're like, oh, this is the one thing that's going to fix it, and I'll be better tomorrow.
Yeah.
And like for runners, I mean, they're notorious. Oh, if I just change my shoes, right? Or, oh, if I change my cadence, or if I do this, or if I take this supplement, oh, collagen, I need to make sure I got collagen. Oh, collagen with vitamin C, good. That's going to make me better. There is no magic bullet for these overuse injuries. They took time to develop. They take patience and time to get better. But don't be thinking that there's magic. Oh, if I tape my foot in this way, or what?
Yeah, right.
Like you're there. Once again, there's no magic bullet. There are things you can do for sure. Like we talked about a few episodes ago. Like if your shoes are getting old, and that was part of the problem, and you go some new shoes, yeah, it might help, but it's not going to make you better tomorrow. And I think oftentimes as triathletes or just endurance athletes or athletes in general, people want that magic bullet. And they go onto the internet. People will sell you a magic bullet.
Yeah.
But there one does not exist. I'm afraid.
No, it's and like I started in the beginning, either you're injured, you're recovering from an injury, or you will be injured at some point. It just is a matter of what's that injury, and maybe a lot of people can mitigate the injuries, but it's hard to find someone who's been in the sport who haven't had an overuse injury. So, and now it's just a matter of managing it, and it does not have to be a devastating blow to your lifestyle or where you want to go with triathlon.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the best triathletes in the world right now is Taylor Knibb, right? How long was she out 2 years ago? Like 9 months. and she's still pretty darn good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I, but I, but I, when you hear the interviews with her, it wasn't 9 months of resting.
Right. Right.
It was 9 months of doing what she could do. Her swim got better
Hmm.
during that time because she was a foot injury. So her
Yeah.
swim got better. Her biking got better,
Yeah.
right? And so, can you actually look at these as that opportunity as well,
Hmm.
right? So, like John, you can't run right now. Well, maybe you could become a better swimmer.
Right.
I doubt it because you're already really good, you know. But you know what I'm saying? Like that's the other way to look at it
Yeah.
is most of the triathletes that I know, not all, are relatively in the grand scheme of things not the greatest swimmers.
Yeah.
So
Right.
can you look at this as an opportunity? Maybe take a swim course. Maybe
Hmm.
do something different where you're like, well, I've always struggled with the swim,
Yeah. Yeah.
so let's just. But don't go crazy like me and create shoulder problems
Yeah.
when you
Right.
can't swim every day. Don't do that. But once again, looking to other weaknesses, maybe you could address.
And it's hard not to come across as being preachy. Here, do this, do that, because
I've made
both,
all these mistakes.
I was just going to say both you and I have been in those spots where we pulled back and we had to grieve a bit in terms of not being able to do something we love doing,
Yep.
and that is okay. It's just a matter of coming out of that grieving period and then finding a way to be effective or shortening that grieving period so that you can come back to the sport. But I've been there. It's been hard. I actually have two careers in triathlon. I remember, back in the 80s and 90s, I was having a great time, loving everything. But then one thing after another, the life just got a little bit stressful. I remember being out on a run and I came across this longhorn steer and I looked at this longhorn steer and he was looking at me and he was basically saying, "What are you doing?" And I looked at him and I said, "What am I doing?" And I was able to walk away from the sport at that point. But that was different. That was
Yep.
not a forced break. That was a break that I said, I need to step away from the sport. And I did. But then I came back 14 years later. And I had a very different mindset at that point and really focused on enjoying it. And so I think there are times where sometimes you got to take a step away, but
It's true.
the sport is always going to be here and welcome people back when they do come back.
The other area that I've been dealing with recently with people that have been injured is trying to help them become advocates for themselves
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
learn how to fix their own problems. And I'm not gonna throw anybody under the bus or anything, but I can tell you this: like, if you were a professional athlete and you get injured, you're going to go work with high level people
Mm-hmm.
every single day, like every day. You're gonna like if you're with the Raiders, you're the Golden Knights, and obviously I know their medical staff. Every day you're going in and you're working with a professional athletic trainer, maybe a physical therapist, maybe a neurologist, maybe whatever the case may be. You're working with high level people, and the rest of the public doesn't have access like that,
Right.
right? So you've got to deal with your insurance issues. You've
Mm.
got to deal with, I was just consulting somebody a little while ago, and with an injury, and they're like, well, the doctor says I need physical therapy. I'm like, okay, good,
Mm.
but I can't get in for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what are you
Right.
going to do in the next 3 weeks? Because
Yeah.
like between the insurance and getting scheduled, I'm like, you need to
Mm-hmm.
come up with a plan because you need to start fixing this now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the nature of where we're at in medicine in the United States
Yeah. Right.
or anywhere probably. And when you do get into physical therapy, depending on insurance and the deal it is, you might only get 2 visits a week,
Mm-hmm.
maybe
Mm.
3 visits a week.
Right.
And once again, because of reimbursement, this is stuff that's you might only see the physical therapist for 15 minutes,
Yeah.
and then you're going to go off and do your exercises,
Mm.
and maybe you'll get frustrated as the athlete where the physical therapist doesn't understand you,
Right.
right?
Right.
You rock in with your Ironman World Championship hat on, they have
Mm-hmm.
no idea what that is,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're like, yeah, like, I'm trying to do an Ironman in a month, and I've got an Achilles problem,
Yeah.
and they're like, and I'll shut you down or whatever. Like, and the answer is no, because
Yeah.
I'm doing this race,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be very, very frustrating when you're meeting with a therapist or meeting with somebody that even an athletic trainer that has no idea the level that you're at.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that what I'm getting at is you have to do the research yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do a ton of reading
Yeah.
and find reputable sources about your injury. And it's not easy, John. The internet is full of people trying to sell you stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, and I mean, really, the internet now is just marketing of everything, right? So use things like ChatGPT and AI to help you. And it's interesting because I'm now teaching my students how to use it to help people
Oh, good.
become better athletes, and
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of good information there. But I think that in today's day and age, if you want to be an elite level triathlete or even a triathlete in general, you're not going to run into people in the medical community that really get what you're doing. I
Mm-hmm.
hate I hate to say that. Like it just would be rare. Like, obviously, people that we've had on physical therapists on the show that kind of get it and have done triathlon and work triathlon, maybe they understand. That's the exception, not the rule.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my other advice for people is just be an advocate for yourself.
No, totally. I think that's great advice. In our medical system, our healthcare system, really need to be your own advocate and come up
Yep.
with ways to shift the thinking of your healthcare provider to understand what it is that you are trying to do and what type of lifestyle you're trying to live. The good thing is, if someone's listening to this and they are injured, you're doing the right thing by listening to this
Yeah.
podcast and getting education and getting some ideas on what you can do beyond listening to podcasts that are here to help you. So,
Yep. No, you're on the right track, and you're not alone. That's the other thing.
yeah,
Like we talked about, like most of the people in the community have been injured.
yeah,
And that's the other advice I would have is like, I was talking maybe negatively about social media, but they could be really positive as well, right? Especially if you've got a really good diagnosis, you know exactly what's wrong.
hmm
Like, post into a Facebook page for the Las Vegas Triathlon Club,
yeah, yeah,
or
right,
I'm really liking some stuff I'm seeing on Reddit. And I know it's not always the best information, but when
hmm
you get a bunch of information together, I think you get it. There's support groups for different things.
yeah,
There's a lot of things out there and people that are willing to share. Even speaking of like that surgery I had last year, like I was really nervous to ride a bike again.
yeah,
And for those of you that remember, I had a urethral reconstruction done. And
hmm
I found several people that were cyclists. I mean, when I got online and I did a bunch of reading that were successful and coming back and have had no issues.
hmm
And rather than my doctor saying it, I kind of was like, well, he's not a cyclist. He doesn't like, like it was more because he was okay with me doing it.
yeah,
It was me being more nervous of like him not understanding that I'm going to ride for 250 miles a week on a time trial bike, you
right,
know.
right,
And that's the other issue about not understanding is remember, most people, once again, even in the sports medicine community, cannot wrap their head around what we do.
hmm
Like when someone asks you how many miles a week do you ride and you say 200, they're like, oh, that seems like a lot.
yeah, right,
But
right,
but unless you've done a 200-mile week
hmm
or how much do you run? Well, I run 50 miles a week. And they're like, oh, okay, that's a lot. They're
hmm
not, that's 5 by 10 miles.
hmm
Like many people have never ran 10 miles in their life and you're doing it 5 times a week on average. And so you say the number and it seems like a lot, but unless really hard for them to be in your shoes. So once again, reach out to the broader community. I've seen some great stuff on Slow Twitch. People
hmm
post about injuries and some great advice, but sometimes it's not good advice. And then other people say, hey, actually, that's not very good advice.
hmm
But there are ways that you can once again be mad at yourself. Yeah.
Well, and I think if the key is taking the time to recover and come back. And when you do these things, or you do some other sports, you get educated, you stay connected with the community, you work on the mental aspect, you come back as a stronger athlete. And I think that's something that is one of the last things I end up telling people who are injured and talking with them about that process is I tell them that you can come back and you end up being a stronger athlete. Maybe not necessarily faster, but you have a better mindset. You have a better approach to the sport. And I think that's, again, if trying to be active throughout your lifestyle, having the right mindset in terms of why you're training, why you're racing, and enjoying it. It really, that's the foundation. So,
I'm more. So I think we covered a lot of stuff tonight.
We did.
I think we kind of, hopefully we can help people
yeah.
tonight. That was the goal. So John, good luck tomorrow at the Triathlon Club race. Hope that all goes well.
Yeah. Thanks. Good luck with your Olympic.
Thank you. I'm just honestly just enjoying the cool weather. It's been such a crazy summer of me being in cool weather, but what I feel now, John, I'm just tell you this, I'm going to get the hot weather in New Zealand in December.
Oh, you think so?
I'm going to do the reverse. It's the reverse year for me this year.
You're going to bring it. All right.
That's the plan. All right. Hey, have a great weekend.
All right. Enjoy.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.